Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for coming to this event on such short notice. We have to fight for our reproductive rights, and in order to do that, we need to take action. My name is Angela Fobbs. I'm a member of the Global Women's Caucus, and I live in Germany, and I vote in Florida. The decision, we knew this decision was going to come down, but now it's in effect, and people's lives are actually being affected on day one, especially in many of the states. We'll hear more about those states who have these laws, these trigger laws, and they can't get abortions anymore. So with that, I want to turn it over to Sally Swartz. She is the team leader of our reproductive justice team. Sally?
Thanks, Angela. And she is extremely depressed, frustrated, but getting very motivated to get you all motivated to do what we have to do. The Supreme Court decision, if any of you wish to read it, is a diatribe of taking things against women away. Basically, there's a main opinion, two concurring opinions, and three, of course, dissenting opinions. You can guess what they say. The main point of the Supreme Court decision is to specifically overrule Roe. It did not make any bones about it. It said it was wrong. It was wrong when it was decided. And the basis for the decision goes on and on and on. I won't bore you with the details, but it basically says that since abortion is not a right that was conceived, sorry for the pun, in the Constitution, it has no basis in the Constitution, and therefore Roe was decided wrongly and should be overruled. It went on to cover all of the issues that were talked about when the first opinion draft was leaked. It talks about it's a prerogative to overrule decisions that it feels were wrongly decided. And it talks about why Roe was wrong in every single concept that you can think of. And it uses the Constitution as the rule of the law of the United States today. And we all know who wrote the Constitution, a number of old or not so old white men. So I'm happy to go into the details on what the decision said, but it killed Roe, and it killed it definitively from a constitutional point of view. Now, what does that mean for American women and American men and everyone else? There was one concurring opinion by our favorite Justice Clarence Thomas, who I believe Bob Valier will talk about a bit later in this program, which says that not only was Roe wrong and should be overturned, but all the cases that were based on the right of privacy, which was handcrafted out of the 14th and 9th Amendment of the Constitution, they are all wrong as well. And Bob will let you know what that means for all the rest of the people that are not, maybe not immediately concerned because they don't have a uterus. So let me tell you what it means. The current state of the union is 44 states out of how many? 50. Prohibit abortion, excuse me, after a certain point in pregnancy. That's almost a majority, but that doesn't mean you can't get an abortion. Currently, 26 states have laws that can be used to restrict the legal status of abortion, and they're getting worse. 13 states have trigger laws. What that means is they said as soon as Roe is overturned, as we speak, abortion will become illegal. 9 states have laws that can be brought back into effect through some act of the state legislature, which will also make abortion illegal. 7 states have already stated that they intend to make it illegal, and 4 states have already passed a constitutional amendment, and 5 others are thinking about it to make abortion illegal in their state constitutions. So we are facing what I would call, for lack of a better term, a earthquake, tsunami, whatever you want to call it, of restricting or outlawing abortion. The good news is 16 states, I know that doesn't add up if somebody wants to yell at me, but that's the way it is because the legislation is continually changing, have laws that protect the right of abortion. And as you may surmise, they are not in the South or predominantly in the Midwest and Southwest. So we are facing a situation where women who have money, who have time, and have the possibility to leave their jobs and take care of their children if they have them, can still get abortions. That leaves the vast majority of women who have children and don't have childcare, have jobs and have no vacation, no medical leave, and have no money, cannot get abortions. And that is against every trend that is trending in the world these days. Ireland, which you probably all know, is a predominantly, if not absolute Catholic country, legalized abortion. The same is true in many, many countries in South America. So I don't want to take up too much of your time. The Global Women's Caucus will be issuing shortly a statement. I'm going to read it, and then I will end my speech shortly thereafter. The Democrats Abroad Global Women's Caucus is appalled by the majority Supreme Court opinion overturning 50 years of history, which granted women the right to control their own bodies and reproductive freedom. This will drastically change the landscape of women's rights and reproductive justice for all women, and particularly those poor and minority women who live in the 26 plus states which already prohibit or drastically restrict abortion. I've already stated that 30 have trigger laws and 9 are going to embed making abortion illegal in their constitutions. And just in case you think it will stop there, there are over 400 bills, 400 in state legislatures obliviating our rights. Yes, as I said, there are safe havens for women who can afford the time and have the money to travel to such states, but the Republicans are fast on the move. We'll talk about this in a second. They are in the process of making it illegal to use medical abortion, in case that's what you're thinking, might be a solution. And they're making it illegal to travel to safe havens to obtain abortions. And there is talk of the Republicans trying to legislate a federal law to ban all abortions. Wrap your head around that. They are pushing us back into the 19th century. We're all going to be barefoot and pregnant. The point here is that we have to gather our strength and get voters registered, because the only thing we can do about this is to assure that we have the Senate and the House on our side. Let me quote something from the majority of opinion of Dobbs versus Mississippi, which is the Supreme Court case which overruled Roe, and then wrap your head against this. Quote, Roe found that the Constitution implicitly conferred a right to obtain an abortion because it didn't ground itself in any law whatsoever. It is time that we have give it back to the states. It relied on erroneous historical narrative, and it is a moral decision. So, folks, we have to give it back to the states, because that's what our lovely Supreme Court has told us. And what does that mean for us? That means that we have to fight, we have to get boots on the ground, and we have to make sure that the state legislatures give us back our rights if they've taken them away, maintain our rights if we still have them. But if we don't register and we don't vote, that is not going to happen. And think of our sisters in all those states who are going to bear children, who will die, who will have illegal abortions, and we are all guilty if we don't get out the vote. Sorry to pull that on you, but it's true. We have to make sure that we take back the Senate, keep the House, change the judges, take the state legislatures, and do whatever we can as Democrats abroad, as Democrats more broadly, and as human beings to stop this, because this is insane. Thank you, Angela. Thank you all that are listening. I'm happy to answer any technical questions or otherwise about the Supreme Court decision. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sally. If anybody has a question, please just go ahead, type * hand up in the chat. If you don't have any questions, we're going to move on to our next speaker. Oh, a hand up. There's Beverly. Go ahead, Beverly, ask your question.
Sorry, just quickly, Sally, you indicated the timing, but can you state specifically what you think? Why now? Why is the timing? Why on the, what was this, 25th of June?
There's nothing particularly sacrosanct. The Supreme Court term is about to end, and they issue many decisions at the end of June. So I don't think the timing has anything to do with, in all the past years, they've issued a plethora of decisions at the end of June. As you know, Justice Breyer is coming off the court, so I don't think that they were going to put it off any longer. I mean, oral arguments were held in February, if I'm not mistaken. So I would say this is completely run-of-the-mill Supreme Court behavior.
Okay. Thanks.
We have a question from Revis. She's from Germany.
Thanks. Hi. Actually, it's less a question than just to also respond to Beverly's thing. They try to get all of their courses out of the docket, and the most ironic aspect of this is that the decision just prior to the Roe was the one outlawing gun control in any states. So the states have to regulate abortion, but the states may not regulate guns. Interesting approach to life.
No, actually, sorry, Rivis, the decision on gun control overturned a New York state law that restricted open gun carry. And it specifically stated that the states couldn't restrict gun laws.
Right, that was my point.
Yeah, okay. But they have all the rights to.
The states are are able to restrict abortion, but may not restrict guns.
That's because the Second Amendment says that people, yeah, I know, have the right to carry guns. No, good point.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Sally. Will you hang on with us for a while, just in case there's anything else that comes up? Great. Our next speaker is Win-Win Lindroth. She is the chair of Democrats Abroad UK, and she has something she'd like to share with us all. Good morning, Win-Win.
Good morning, Angela. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. I need to go to our annual general meeting in the middle of the meeting, so I apologize if I sort of run off. But I put together some thoughts here. I'm not going to talk very long, but just to point out that even though we control the White House and the Senate and the House, we obviously are not in control of the government. And, you know, what's happened really is the result of a very long-term strategy that the Republicans have taken. And McConnell, you know, over many years has clearly kind of put all the pieces in place to be able to overturn this, you know, landmark civil rights decision that's held for 50 years. And how did he do it? How did the Republicans do it? They really did it through a broad strategy, a deep strategy that went into every single state and local election. They did it by mining the data and leveraging it to their advantage. And, you know, through gerrymandering, I would also kind of call out the alliances that they've made within their different constituency groups. So between centrists, between the Christian fundamental groups, the MAGA people. And so, you know, this is a very long-term effort that has unfortunately come to fruition for the Republicans. So what does that mean for us? What do we need to do? The just sort of very high level thought is that we need to have in the Democratic Party a long-term strategy that is equally as broad and as sophisticated and deep and detailed as the Republicans. And that means not just, you know, the people on the ground like us, but our leaders to really have this comprehensive vision and not just to think within a 2-year cycle or 4-year cycle or 6-year cycle, but really to think within like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years of planning. And that's how we get there. So, you know, we've got to work at all levels of government. We have to be really patient. And, you know, somebody I would kind of jumps out at me as being extremely good at this is Stacey Abrams. She worked over a 10, 15-year period to get Georgia to where it was, such that we could actually flip it. And, you know, we have the Senate now because of that really patient and deep effort that she made over a long period of time, playing the long game, you know, realizing that she may not win every race, or, you know, Democrats may not win every race, but to just continue to chip away and to think and to use the data to her advantage. Okay, so that's on the voting front. There's another aspect to all this that I think is really important, and it's about media education and messaging. And on the messaging front, I don't mean like messaging for just one election or a tagline, that the Biden administration needs to come up with for the midterms. It's not that. It's more putting in place the infrastructure to educate the American public back to a normal position. Because I think that what's happened over the last 20, 30 years is Fox News, the Murdoch empire, other conservative media groups, Sinclair, they have really used our media infrastructure to re-educate and divide us. And I think that much of the polarization and extreme right-wing thought is coming from the world of media. And somehow those of us, in the Democratic Party and on the left need to figure this out. It really needs something more of a comprehensive strategy, in my view. I don't know exactly how it happens, but, we need to have some kind of a national media or messaging or education platform and strategy to sort of bring people back from where they are now in their heads because of decades of brainwashing. The last thing I'll touch on is just what we're doing in DAUK. Clearly this is a rallying call, and it's very sad, but it is bringing out and re-energizing our volunteer base. And I think we'll see a lot of new volunteers and super volunteers come out of this. We're taking advantage and creating events where we can. And so we went to a rally outside the US Embassy on Friday. We've promoted that on social media, that's helping to raise our profile among the UK population, which is something that we need to do because there's so many more Americans living in the UK that we could bring into, Democrats abroad. And, we realize that, we have work to do there. So we're, working on upskilling our external communications, growing this group, building a bigger, deeper, more diverse bench of spokespeople, something I know that, France has already done. And we're gonna work on digital advertising and just try to get our name out there, because I suspect that a lot of Americans in the UK, in fact, don't know that we exist. And so the first thing that we need to do is to raise our profile and to make it known that, we're a home for left-leaning Americans, Democrats, independents, anybody who wants to defect from the Republican Party at this point, and they can come in, have a home here, and have an impact. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Thank you. I'll turn it back to Angela.
Thank you so much, Win-Win. You are really right. We have to end our internal squabbles and get to work. One of the big differences between Republicans and Democrats is that they had a target, and it didn't actually matter how they got there. It didn't matter what steps had to be taken. They just all had the same idea. We're going in this direction, and they didn't let their internal battles, squabbles stop us. And we've got to stop doing that for sure. So good luck on your AGM today. I hope it's a beautiful day in London for it. And thank you so much for dropping by.
Thank you, Angela. Thanks for the chance to speak.
No problem. All right. So our next speaker is Robin Salava. She is actually a personal friend of mine, and she lives in Texas right now. And she is under the oppressive regime of the Texas government, and she's going to give us a little report about reproductive rights and women's rights in Texas. Good morning, Robin.
Good morning, and it's Oliver.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, I did some research to kind of look at what is going on, and it's even more disturbing than what I realized. Okay, the Senate passed Bill 8. Okay, that was already passed back in September. And here's what makes it unique to some of these other laws that are going in place, and that is you can actually sue anyone who aids and abets someone getting an abortion. That doesn't necessarily mean medical providers. That means anyone who aids, including, I love this part, someone who helps pay for it. So there are people concerned who are Uber drivers. If you're a friend and you just happen to give the person a ride to New Mexico or Mexico, you can be sued. And the key here is by anyone. It doesn't have to be someone directly involved with the woman who is pregnant. Now they're trying to say, look, we're not going to go after the woman who gets an abortion. We're just going to go after the medical providers who can end up paying up to $100,000. And the penalties, they're kind of out there, but they're looking between 2 to 99 years in prison. And then to anyone who just helps, then they could end up being sued for up to $10,000 and have to pay attorney fees. Now, here's what I found is even more disturbing than all of this. The Republicans just recently had their annual conference and came out with their platform, and they have decided that life begins at conception. And that's important to note. It begins at conception. So part of their plan is to, in addition to banning abortion, is banning certain types of contraceptives like an IUD, because that will be technically fall as an abortion. So we're looking at restrictions on this as well. And I find that to be incredibly scary. So they plan on getting rid of Plan B and IUDs. There's some mention of some other contraceptives as well, but those are the only two that I know for sure that they plan on doing. So it's kind of sad right now. We are talking about measures that women need to take to protect themselves and others if they decide to go out of state. Right now, the only state that is available to them within the borders of Texas is going to be New Mexico. And of course, then Mexico itself. But they're asking women to, if you buy a pregnancy test, stay away from using credit cards, store reward programs so that that cannot be traced. Tell no one if you can, because if they do and they accidentally slip that you're getting an abortion, then they could report it. There's also the concern about GPS tracking. Try to avoid having those activated on your phones, because there's and texting, anything in writing, emails, handwritten notes, because they're saying all these things can be used as evidence in court. And from what I gather, it's not going to be used against the woman who gets the abortion. It's going to be used against anybody who helps. So that makes us even more draconian, in my opinion, than what we're already facing. But that's what I was able to find out from the research that I did.
Wow.
Does anybody have any questions?
Wow, Robin, that is, I never thought that we would be in this position, but there are so many, especially, yes, people need to delete their period tracking apps and all these other things.
Yes, the list of suggestions are period tracking apps. Oh, and another thing, don't tell your medical provider when you had your last period.
Yeah, sorry, I want.
Oh, that's okay. But yes, do not tell your medical provider when you've had your last period. Get rid of your tracking apps. And I would be even concerned about phone records. So if you're calling abortion providers out of state, you might want to use a phone that can't be tracked back to you or could end up being used in court with the records. So they're telling women, start protecting your paper trail and your electronic trail and everything else as well. But in this case, they're having to protect anyone who's
So we have some questions out here for you. First question is from Judith. Do you want to unmute and speak, Judith?
Yes, hi, and thank you so much, Robin, for that, because what's really great about it is that literally helping people by making phone calls or sending emails, could be a very practical thing we could do from away. I'm in the UK, like when, and I'll be leaving shortly before 10. There's just a comment I wanted to make, which is the presentation that I saw on TV that kind of marked me the most was Nancy Pelosi, who found this brilliant compromise between, justified fury and determination. And it's just a point I wanted to make. For so long, women have been accused of being angry, of being temperamental, of being hysterical. And I think it's very important that we find in the months to come a balance between righteous indignation and action, and absolutely 100% avoid violence. Because one of the things that has been talked about a lot is violent clashes, angry exchanges. We need to keep the moral high ground and engage in zero violence, but keep our anger, keep our righteous indignation, and have it push us through in these horrible months that are about to start.
Right.
And thank you for letting me cry, because it's the first time I've cried since a Friday evening. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for the men who are here.
Thank you, Judith, for your comments. Yeah,
it's okay if I say a couple things. That, first of all, we've already had violence. I don't know if you heard about what happened in Rhode Island. There was a protest. It was peaceful. Some anti-abortionists showed up. One of the women who was at the protest and trying to calm everything down is someone who is running for office. She was hit, punched in the face, and they think the person who did it is her Republican opponent, who is also a law officer. So,
oh my God.
So in Rhode Island, we have already had an assault at a peaceful protest. So I love the idea that let's not let violence happen, but it already has happened. And there has been a prediction that violence against women is going to increase now because of this. And one thing I'd like to note as well, one of my grave concerns is that it's been lovely to see on TikTok, all these people are reaching out saying, I live here in New Mexico. I live here in New York. You need a place to stay. Let me know. I'm here for you. I can help. And there's a pilots organization where pilots who have private aircraft are willing to fly women to get abortions. They have raised $50,000 so far. That's great. The downside, though, is in Texas, they can be sued. All these people who are trying to help can be sued. And that's where I find myself feeling even more angry and even more frustrated, because they're, I've seen on TikTok comments like, well, you can get abortion somewhere else. You can go get it in another state. It's not like, you're prevented 100% from getting an abortion. But I feel like the way the Texas law is getting set up is that it's walling these women in. It's walling them in by creating fear of anybody stepping forward to help. So if you're a pilot with a private aircraft, you're going to be afraid to fly these women to New Mexico or wherever, because you could end up getting sued and be out $10,000 plus attorney fees.
Yeah.
So that's my concern.
Sally, did you have a question?
I wanted to clarify a question that was raised in the chat room about medical secrecy. The HIPAA laws in the United States only apply to federally funded medical care. All right, there is no medical privacy for anything that you put out there, that they hack into your phones. But what Robin was saying, this is to follow up on what Robin was saying, there is no positive defense against the invasion of privacy of your medical records. That is a misconception. So make sure that we get that message out there. The other thing I was going to say is the next thing they're going to do, and Robin already hinted at it, well, she didn't hint, they're going to outlaw abortion, because under the list in the Texas bill is also the morning after pill, which obviously is considered to be an abortion by all these lunatics. And so the last thing I'd like to say is to respond to Judith, who I wanted to thank because she's on our task force or action team. I am sick and tired of taking the high road, okay? We get screwed every time. I'm sorry, but Democrats are always the nice people. We're not vicious, we're not mean, we don't say bad things about people, and this is where it's gotten us. So I don't endorse violence of any shape, sort, or kind, but I think we need to get off our high horses, and I love Michelle Obama like everyone else, but taking the high road has gotten us a Supreme Court with a conservative majority, to be polite, and 30-something states where women can't get health care. So yeah, let's not punch anyone out. Okay, I wouldn't do that either. But, you know, as a Democratic Party, we need to get our shit together, excuse my French, and stop being nice to everybody and being polite and taking our anger and putting it into, we need boots on the ground, women and men. We need to show how angry we are, and we need to assert our rights. We're back to 1972 before Roe. Pretty soon they're going to take our vote away if we're not careful. So yeah, Judith, we don't want to be violent. I don't know about a lot of women that are packing pistols to shoot people either. But I think we also have to be aware of the fact that nice gets us nowhere. And thank you for giving me the mic again.
Okay, thanks a lot. We have a couple more questions, and if we can keep them really, I mean, from the audience, keep them really brief. Emily, what's the question from Facebook?
Yeah, there was just a question that came in. We can maybe answer this also later. Just someone asking, you know, what are our possibilities for maintaining and regaining majority in the Senate, and which ones are really vulnerable? So that's just something someone's asking, so we know what we're looking for.
Okay,
but
I can put something out a little bit later. Last question from Andrew. Go ahead, and then we'll move on to the next speaker. You're on mute, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to drop a bomb here, and Robin, it's not directed at you. People who know me won't be surprised. I spent 30 years as an old-fashioned labor lawyer dealing in the union environment and ultimately civil rights in the airline industry. It's time to consider, and I'm thinking of asking Heather for this in a legal advice so we're covered, for a worldwide boycott of American Airlines. If you want to stir things up, start encouraging people to quit using American because they're based in Texas. Jesse Jackson did this with Coca-Cola in Atlanta. I know from being an Indiana voter and longtime resident, Pence collapsed and his ratings plummeted when the NCAA threatened to pull out after he went crazy with I forget what we call it, the rehabilitation that was supposed to happen to LGBT people. I forget the conversion therapy. This is a tool that we can use right now. And if you want to take the gloves off, if you want to have an impact, let that go out there. And I'm telling you, if you want to see some disruption, American is one of the major carriers. They chose to move from New York to Texas because they wanted to avoid liberal labor laws. They have far better environment to oppress their workers. Now, don't get me wrong. They're all organized and they're all far better off than most American workers. But we have to hit them where it hurts, and we have to do it in a way that has an immediate impact. Now, just think of what will happen if American Airlines, Delta has a major hub there. So it's something to think about. I put it out there. I don't know what the implications for us could be with this crazy Supreme Court. There may be RICO suits or all kind of other craziness out there, but it's time to hit back. And I couldn't say better what Sally just said, and many are saying, Jamel Bowie the other day in the Times, time to take the gloves off, no more high road. If this is serious stuff, the Republic is literally at stake. End of speech.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew. That is an awesome suggestion. I think we ought to take that to heart. Thank you, Robin, so much. I hope you can hang on with us a little while and continue to listen.
One thing she did say that I also found in the GOP platform from this recent meeting is they do want to repeal the 1965 Voting Rights Act. So she's right, that's the direction that we're heading. So yes, I'm hoping that we can turn things around. We've got to.
Yeah, everybody from Texas, vote for Beto O'Rourke, please.
Absolutely.
And Democrats down the line. We have a Texas state team at, it is at Texas. If you want to contact them, Texas at democratsabroad.org. If you want to get involved, they have outreach in Texas and abroad to like try to get people ready to vote.
One last comment, Angela, sorry to butt in, but it's not just Texas, okay? We can start with Texas as a place to start our movement, our boycotts, our marching, but it's all over the place. Florida, for example, elected the same law that that Texas has, just to let you know. The last thing is we'll be holding an action team meeting on June 30th. If you'd like to join that, email me. I put my email in the chat box and I'll send you the call-in details because Andrew, we've been discussing boycotts. So thanks. Sorry, Angela.
No problem. This is all really good information. Katie is putting our state team emails in the chat. So if you vote in one of those states or you want to get involved, could you also put in Ohio at democratsabroad.org? I'm on the Ohio team. Not every state has a team, but a lot of the bigger ones do. Let's go to our next speaker, Bob Vallier. He is the chair of the LGBTQ caucus and an invaluable person to know in these times. Good morning, Bob.
Well, I don't know about these times in particular, but sometimes I'm useful. Yesterday, the LGBTQ caucus steering committee collaborated on a statement that immediately after this meeting we'll be sending to all caucus members. And so I thought that I would give you a preview of it by reading it. It's a bit long. It takes about 12 minutes to read. Bear with me, but I think it's important. So on Friday, the Supreme Court issued a chilling decision overturning Roe, striking down a well-established precedent of 50 years, and for the first time ever taking away a constitutional right. It will not be the last time. The decision will have an immense and immensely negative impact on the bodily autonomy of women, as well as transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people who can give birth, their right to seek and obtain affordable health care, and their ability to control their own reproductive systems. At least 26 states have passed restrictive bans and criminalized the efforts of both individuals and doctors to administer the health care that's in the best interest of the patient, and have even curtailed the right of the patient to make decisions in their own best interest. Now, both Mike Pence and Mitch McConnell are indicating that they will not rest until this ban is nationwide. It goes without saying, but let us say it anyway, loudly and clearly, this decision is deplorable and dangerously regressive for all Americans. And this was not unexpected, although it is still shocking. It was not unexpected because both the court and several states have been telegraphing the inevitability of this decision for at least 5.
I think Bob froze.
I wasn't sure if it was Bob or me.
Because what was overturned on
Bob,
Friday.
hold on a second. You froze up for about a minute. Sorry. Can you go back a little bit in your statement?
Where was I?
I
I'll just-
don't know.
Telegraphed for the last 5 years.
Telegraph, but yeah, good, thank you.
All right. It was not unexpected because the court and several states have been telegraphing the inevitability of this decision for at least 5, if not 50 years. The dots were there to be connected. But this decision does not only affect women, transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people and their healthcare providers, in no small part because what was overturned on Friday was not merely the right to abortion, but rather, and arguably more importantly, the right to privacy. Fundamentally, what Roe affirmed was the finding first articulated in Griswold, that although it is not explicitly stated as such in the Constitution, a right to privacy does exist in the penumbra of the 1st, 4th, 5th, 9th, and 14th Amendments. That right to privacy is now very much in doubt. So why does this matter to the LGBTQ+ community? Because subsequent cases, most notably, but not only Lawrence and Obergefell, are predicated in substantial part on the right to privacy. Lawrence effectively decriminalized homosexuality in 2003, nullifying the remaining sodomy laws in the states on the premise that what one does in one's own private bedroom is one's own private business, and the state does not have a compelling interest in regulating that. Obergefell established marriage equality as the law of the land, in part on the premise that the marital couple enjoys privacy and the state has no compelling interest in limiting that right to only certain persons. In his concurring opinion, Justice Thomas writes, and I quote, "For that reason," which he articulated in the preceding paragraph, "in future cases, we should reconsider all of this court's substantive due process precedents, including Griswold, Lawrence, and Obergefell." Tellingly, he does not mention Loving, but other right-wing extremists in state legislatures have already done so. With this one single sentence, Justice Thomas is inviting states and other interested parties to challenge those findings, signaling that the conservative majority of the court will hear and likely overturn the rights that are established by them, which is exactly what they did in the lead up to this case. They let us know first. The dots are already there. We must not fail to connect them. And make no mistake, they are coming for contraception. The right to access such was established in Griswold, which was the basis for the right to privacy. They're coming for what you do in the privacy of your bedroom. They're coming for marriage equality, and that's just for starters. It's not a matter of if, but when. Since Thomas is signaling to the states that they should try to pass laws to recriminalize homosexuality or regulate marriage in some fashion or another, they will attempt to do so, perhaps as early as this fall, and certainly after the November elections if Republican extremists should acquire a legislative majority or trifecta at the state level. This means that it's possible, probably unlikely, but nevertheless possible, that by this time next year, in some states, it may once again be illegal to marry who you love. It may be illegal to make love to your partner, and it may even be illegal to use contraception, which in this case is not merely a matter of preventing pregnancy, but also an important public health issue. This has additional consequences for all of the social and economic benefits that accrued to married couples. Health insurance, elder care, end-of-life decisions, tax benefits, even the status of children. They've already come for the women. Now they're coming for the rest of us. We cannot afford to behave now like the characters in The Handmaid's Tale do in those cutaway flashbacks when they dispassionately worry that, oh, maybe something is wrong and, oh, maybe something is happening here, but dismiss the evidence staring them in the face as they naively believe that it cannot happening here. It is happening here, and it is happening now. Sorry, I banged my desk so hard I lost my place. The dots are there. We must connect them. And we must take action now. First, political action. We must quintuple, at least, our efforts to make sure that every American abroad is registered to vote and has requested their absentee ballots, starting with ourselves. If you haven't done it already, go to the new and improved votefromabroad.org right now and do it. And then make sure that this afternoon that 5 friends do it as well. We must convince all of our friends and family in the States to get off their asses and vote. We must have difficult conversations with them and make them aware that a vote for Christo-fascism is a vote against our very existence. We must recall that the fight for marriage equality was carried out on a state-by-state basis before it became a legal matter before the court, and continue to fight on a state-by-state basis to protect our rights. And to this end, please consider joining one of DA's state action teams to help elect Democratic state legislators and track legislative initiatives. We mention Texas and Florida all the time, but you should see what's going on in Ohio right now. Second, personal action. This is for the LGBTQ+ community. Consult with a lawyer and get your papers in order. Make sure you have a living will and a power of attorney that names your spouse as someone who can act on your behalf, and make sure your spouse does this too. And no matter where you're living, make sure that you and your family have legal protections. Third, you can help us get out the vote. The entire organizational apparatus of Democrats Abroad is dedicated to maximizing the number of Americans voting from abroad this November. We must vote at every level: state legislatures, governorships, the US Congress. We must retain and expand our majorities in both the House and the Senate. But we cannot do this without your support. It doesn't matter if you're phone banking or tabling or just harassing your friends and family to vote. You need to volunteer now. Fourth, in all honesty, one of the best ways you can help us is to donate, because getting out the vote costs money. We maintain the VFA website, maintain data security, print and distribute materials, subscribe to a phone banking service, all of which depends on your generosity. And for us in the LGBT caucus, one of the best ways you can support us right now through a donation is through the Amsterdam Canal Pride event. Every single cent of profit from that high-profile event will go towards getting out the vote from abroad. All the European media will be focused on us on August 6th, so a $20 donation will help us immensely. And if every member of the LGBT caucus, if every one of the 10,000 plus members of the Women's Caucus donated just $20, we'd be able to reach tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of Americans living abroad who, for whatever reason, do not vote. Those thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of votes can swing this election and forestall, if not reverse, further regression. It's not 1972. It's not 1952. It's 1933. It's all too easy to reach for those poetic words. First, they came for the trade unionists. Or quote Benjamin Franklin, if we do not hang together, then we will surely hang separately. But simply citing these words is insufficient, a mere performance. We have to do more than act. We must all take concrete action now. For otherwise, there will be no tomorrow for democracy, for America, and for us. And I beg you, friends, do not despair. Do not give in to resignation, that saddest of all virtues, as Beauvoir says. Our future, if we are to have one, depends on what we do right now. Thank you.
Wow, Bob. I completely understand the danger, but you made it super clear, and I feel scared and motivated, and I hope everyone else feels motivated too. Later on in this, we're going to talk about something you can do right now today to help us get more people to vote. Is there anyone who has a question for Bob? Yeah, I while we're waiting to see if any, just type star hand up in the chat. I don't like Clarence Thomas in general. And the fact that he left out the Loving decision is just disingenuous, because he has to know that once all these dominoes fall, that's going to fall too. So Everyone loves you, Bob, especially me. You're always the best. We don't have any questions because you were so clear. We will add your list to our growing list of actions that we need to take and let everybody know about. Thank you so much, Bob. Hope you can hang out with us for a little bit longer. If not, thanks for coming. Our next speaker is Danny Follett. She is the chair of DA UK and a person that was also very instrumental in helping us get this event set up for today. Good morning, Danny.
Good morning. Thanks so much, Angela. I am actually chair of DA France. We had Wen on earlier, chair of DA UK.
Sorry.
No. Thank you so much, Angela, for spearheading this, for making this happen today. In record time, your organizing skills are evident for all, for really turning this around and making this today happen. So that's really, really, really impressive. And thank you. And thank you for all the other speakers. And thank you, Bob, for that. We are outraged about this. Our fundamental rights are under attack by radical extremists who are now dominating the Supreme Court, and we cannot lower our fists. We are going to keep fighting. This is an unprecedented attack on human rights and such a regression in our struggle for gender equality, for the fight to enshrine the right to privacy, and it is absolutely unacceptable. We will continue to fight this, and this is what we need to talk about today, is how to continue fighting. And then what I'm going to say now is going to be rather short because we want to now turn our words and our rage into action soon as we talk about getting out the vote among our members. But my few words are going to be about a bit of the generations of women who have been fighting long and hard to win these freedoms that we are now seeing repealed. This is so depressing, this is despairing, but we are going to continue the fight because what those generations of women inspired in us to allow Roe v. Wade to become enshrined in law, that is what we are going to continue having to do. My mother was a leader in an abortion rights group in New York State in the 1960s. She helped organize women in rural upstate New York to go to Albany to demand the right to have an abortion. And they won it in 1970 in New York State. That was 3 years before Roe versus Wade. And though now my mother has dementia, she still remembers that struggle. And it breaks my heart to have to tell her what is happening now. But I assure her, we are carrying forth the struggle, and her hard work has not been in vain, will not be in vain. This Supreme Court is motivated by ideological, political, religious biases that have no place in our liberal democracy. Our democracy, which is based in tolerance and the acceptance of differences. The Republicans are shouting their libertarian propaganda about freedoms, and yet they are taking away our freedoms. And no one is forcing them to have abortions against their will. So they have no right to force us not to have them or to prevent us from having them against our will. The arguments that are being used are based in flawed logic, basically as though something that is not already in an archaic set of laws could not possibly be legal. We see this also with the gun laws issue. This is flawed, this is unacceptable, and this is what we must show to everybody, that this logic is not possible to found our democracy on. They're going to be coming, as Bob just told us very eloquently, they're going to be coming for our other privacy law rights, like contraception, marriage equality. And so we need to keep prepared and mobilize our troops. Winning these fundamental rights is a long process over many generations. So as Wen told us earlier, the Republicans have a long game on this. They've been working on the ideological front for many generations, with an ideological brainwashing for decades. But we also have a long game. We have a progressive, very long game, and it's been going on for 250, 300 years. We are working towards these rights, liberal rights. We also have been working on education and communications. We are doing everything we can to continue that long game and pushing it further. And though we are saddened and we are outraged, we cannot be depressed, and we must remember that we are in the process of a very long game as well. We have also today, something to keep in mind is that the world is not the same as the way it was before Roe versus Wade. We have now the internet, we have quick communications, we have the ability to touch so many more people as we reach out. We have the precedence of decades of living with these rights, and that changes mentalities. That also is impossible to overturn. We have new generations who are ready to fight for their rights. We have new waves of activism on many converging fronts. Climate action, we have new labor struggles, we have new feminism, we have LGBTQ rights, people who are very active in these converging fronts of action. And these new waves of activism will be taking this forward. We are not resigned. And I know that we can continue working on taking this action. Because though we've lost a battle, we admit it, we have lost a battle now, but we have not lost the war. Our efforts that are made today as we fight to protect our reproductive rights and to enforce gender equality and right to privacy will translate into better lives for our daughters and our sons and future generations. The majority of Americans, Republicans and Democrats, men and women, support women's rights to control our own bodies and destinies. This theocracy is a minority, and it has no right to determine our intimate lives. My own first activist experience just out of high school was in making phone calls with NARAL, so National Abortion Rights Action League, to protect abortion rights from threats that were ongoing still at that time. So these 50 years since Roe versus Wade have not been simple, smooth sailing. We can take nothing for granted. We are in a constant process of waves of battles. And though this is a tragic moment and a setback, we will not give up the fight and we will carry it on. So just a couple words about what we're doing here in France, DA France. We are going to be demonstrating in the streets on this Saturday in the Place de la République, so in 1 week. And we were also in the streets after the first draft leaked decision came out. We've been communicating on this constantly, and we've been interviewed many times in the French media. We've also had many new members since Friday evening. So we are outraged, we are furious, and we are carrying this forth. We will not allow this theocracy to determine our lives. No passera. We are in shock, we are sad, but we're not going to give up. So let's channel this sorrow and this anger into righteous indignation. Let's channel it into action to make sure every Democrat votes this year, every Democrat that we know. We must do our personal outreach and then also our ongoing outreach through Democrats abroad so that we can pass federal legislation to protect our fundamental human rights. Let's get those 2 more Democratic senators, and let's keep our eye on the long game. We don't have the right to allow this to get us down. We have to keep working on the education, the communications, the fundraising, and now let's get phone banking. So on that note, back to you, Angela. Thank you.
Hey, Danny.
Who was that?
Thanks, Sally.
That was me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Danny. Yeah, you have some inspiring words, and while we're going to give everybody a chance to, if you want to have your say, we're live on Facebook, and this will be recorded and distributed. So if you would like to say something about this situation, please just type * hand up in the chat, and we'll start a queue where you can go ahead and say your piece. But while we're waiting for people to get in the queue, if there is anyone, I'd like to also let you know about a project that the Reproductive Justice team is working on. We started earlier in the year in order to get prepared for this. So we have a few videos already, but we're asking members to make videos, men and women, to make videos to talk about the fact that you need to vote and that why abortion should be legal. I'm going to put also a link in the chat to the existing videos. We have a playlist on YouTube. Feel free to share those videos on social media. I have one, Sally has one. In my video, I talk about I had a tubal pregnancy and almost died, and I had to be rushed to the hospital, and I went to a Christian hospital actually, and they just saved my life. They didn't put me through it, but this was years ago. These days, they would just have let me die. So if you'd like to make a video, please feel free to do that. Is there anybody in the queue? Rachel, if you'd like to speak, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Yeah, it was more of a question for Danny. I'm someone who just recently registered to become a member yesterday, and I'm based in France. Yeah, I'm very excited. And I'm based in France, but in the Brittany area. And so a lot of us a lot of Americans or other people in this area were trying to form some sort of action in line with the Paris action. So maybe I was wondering if Danny, we could exchange contact or something so that I have questions for you basically.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rachel, and welcome to Democrats of Ireland. Thank you for what you're doing. We have a Brittany chapter, and so let's connect after this and we can talk about it. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much and welcome.
Okay. Again, I will offer if anyone would like to make a comment or ask a question of anyone at this time, this is the time. Otherwise, if no one has a comment, all right, Chloe, please go ahead.
Let me just unmute myself. Hi, everyone. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you, Angela, for putting this together so quickly. I didn't know which route I wanted to take because as a woman, as an aspiring law student, as a human rights activist, this decision is particularly disappointing in a number of different ways. But as a former sex ed educator in Boston, I recognize that preventative medicine in preventing teen pregnancy and making sure that women are protected against pregnancy, given the fact that their right to abortion is now restricted. There's a little information that I'm sure a lot of the people on the call may know, but if you don't, it's important to spread it to the young people in your life that may not have comprehensive sex education in the United States. So when we used to teach sex ed, we emphasize that if you are expecting your period and it is 1 day late and you take a pregnancy test and it comes back positive, you're considered 4 weeks and 1 day into that pregnancy. So going off of a Twitter thread by another educator who was putting forward this point, she asks, how could you be 4 weeks pregnant? What if you only had sex 2 weeks ago? Well, a pregnancy is calculated from the first day of your last menstrual cycle, and it bears repeating about 4 or 5 times for students because eventually it dawns on them that if you are 1 week late, you are 5 weeks pregnant. And by the time that you notice your period is late, you get an appointment with a doctor and you figure out your next steps. You might actually be at 6, 7, or 8 weeks along, especially if you got jerked around by a fake clinic. And we're seeing the rise of fake clinics in Canada, where abortion, there is no limit on the dates, so you'll be hard pressed to find a doctor that will give you an abortion after 21 weeks. But there are more fake clinics than there are real abortion providers in Canada. And so I'm assuming that as we see this right restricted, we're probably going to see the rise of fake clinics. We're going to see the rise of bad faith actors offering support in women when in reality, they just want to waste their time. So 1 week late, your pregnancy could be at 9 weeks. And if you mistake implantation bleeding for a light period and only figure it out when you miss your next period, the window to get a medical abortion is rapidly closing. And if you live in certain states, you'll have to make arrangements to travel in one. One mistake will irrevocably change the trajectory of your life if you cannot make arrangements to get out of your state. I think it's important to provide funds, and it's sad that we're seeing this trend towards private donations to fill the gaps where the state is really failing American citizens, but it's what we're left with. And so if you have the means to donate to an abortion care provider or any organization looking to provide women with the abortion pill, or especially sex education, which is sorely lacking in the United States. And it has been proven to prevent teen pregnancy, and teen pregnancy is one of the leading causes of high school dropouts among women. Please do so. An organization that I worked for when I was in Boston is called Pure Health Exchange, and they train university students to go into Boston and other public schools around the country and teach comprehensive sex education. So not only contraceptives and sexual health, so STIs, STDs, but also mental health and bodily health.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Chloe, for bringing up sex education. I put in an article in the chat. It's about how we're failing in sex education. I think if people take a look at it, there's a nice chart in there that just shows you that we're headed on a collision course. People don't know about sex, and people don't know they have a lot there. It's like we're back in like 1920 or something when it comes to sex, that people are like getting a lot of bad information. So we definitely have to change that 1000%. Emily, we had a question on Facebook.
Yeah, someone had asked a little while back, just what are the legal ramifications for someone that doesn't provide abortion services for someone that needs it, for when the health of the mother is in jeopardy? Would that not, they asked if that's considered then manslaughter because they're refused access?
No, it's not. It's not. It's not refused. It's not manslaughter. There was a case in Ireland a few years ago, and they were just following the law that you couldn't have as long as the fetus had a heartbeat, they couldn't do anything. And so they waited until the fetus didn't have the baby was in the process of dying inside the mother. And she became septic and she died. Nothing happened to the doctors because they were following the law. And that's Ireland, but this has happened. There's a couple of cases in the United States about this recently. They're just following the law. And if the law is faulty because people don't understand medicine or women's bodies or human sexuality or biology, then so be it.
Correct.
Yeah. Our next question is from Andrew. Hi, Andrew. Hi, once again.
I withdrew, but because I want to hear from my women friends instead, but I just wanted to give you a perspective as a father and a grandfather. What I just heard from my daughter, it's similar to Robin's Tranche de la Vie in Texas, Redux, Indiana. My daughter's a 51-year-old lawyer, very much a feminist. She's been appalled by this. We've been back and forth. I've been sort of trying to buck her up, but I have a 20-year-old granddaughter, her daughter, going into her junior year at Purdue. She just asked her mother 2 days ago if she could go to the protest in downtown Indianapolis. The fear of guns is so overwhelming now, and gun violence. My daughter reluctantly told her no, and needless to say, is troubled by that. But this is where we are. So, and I just had a brief chat with my wonderful Norwegian wife, Ragnhild, who finds all of this otherworldly, and yet because she lives with me and sees the direct impact it has on me and therefore on us, she's more aware. And when I explained the implications of what Robin took us through in Texas, for me, there may be some bright lines. And for those who are interested, I can tell you the Indiana story some other time. But even so-called red states, I predict there could be some disastrous consequences for the Republicans if we follow the lines of what Bob and Danny and others were saying and have a real plan, win-win, don't give up, long-term game, the long game. But this isn't over. Stay tuned. Watch what happens in Indiana. It'll be very interesting. It's a big election year, and there's a lot of interesting missing in action Republicans who don't quite know how to handle this, because Indiana women have shown repeatedly when it comes to women's issues, they can be extremely independent. That happened in 2012, and that's how Joe Donnelly got elected. Long story, won't bore you with that, but happy to fill you in. Stay tuned. There could be a bright side, but it's certainly not with us today.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Sally, you're up next.
Yeah, thanks. There's a question in the chat box that I think I'll answer first.
Good, thank you.
The question is, any specifics on the situation where the woman's life is in danger because of the pregnancy? Of the states that have restricted abortion laws, some of them, not all of them, permit an abortion when the woman's life is in danger. Most of them do not, and most of them do not permit abortions in the case of rape or incest as well. If you would like a full, I can read you all the state bans on abortion, but I won't take up your time. They're available at the Guttmacher Institute online, as well as on Planned Parenthood and NARAL. But it's not always the case, so we can't rely on it. And the more we walk down this horrible path, the more restrictive things will be. Most of the Republican states have outlawed abortion after you can either hear a heartbeat or from conception. So whether her life is in danger or not doesn't seem to matter. What I really wanted to say, other than that, is Connie Board, who is started with other women, the first women's caucus in France, the 30 years of which we just celebrated in Paris last Saturday, sent me an article that was published in the New York Times. It's an opinion piece proffering the premise that the Supreme Court is not all powerful, and that is very true. Let us remember that it's only one of the three arms of the U.S. government. And it can be overcome by legislation. The article itself talked about changing the number of justices on the Supreme Court, which Roosevelt tried to do way back when. And the author says that perhaps the threat of increasing the number of justices on the Supreme Court will be enough to draw them in. I don't actually, I have an opinion. I won't bore you with it. Get in touch if you want to know. But if you're interested in reading the opinion, either email Connie or myself and we'll send it to you. It's called How to Discipline a Rogue Supreme Court, June 25th by Jamel Boule. So I just wanted to add that because otherwise I think Connie's going to call me up and yell at me. And I didn't want her to do that because she is one of the best activists I know. Thanks.
Thank you, Sally. Christina, you had a statement, question?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. We just finished our country committee's hub calling, call hub campaign. And it was my experience that the majority of people had actually not applied for an absentee ballot yet. And not only had they not applied for an absentee ballot, many of them, I would say at least 20%, thought, at least that was my experience, thought that they shouldn't be voting in the midterms. There are so many misconceptions about our members out there. I'm suggesting that we take our protest to the ballot box because we need to make people understand that they have the right to vote in the midterms, that they have, in 32 states, you can get a down ballot and vote down ballot in 32 states. And we should encourage our members to do so. I mean, like in the state of Ohio, the Supreme Court Justice Devine is now up for election. This is the governor's son, and he refuses to recuse himself every time the governor makes a statement that is important for the Supreme Court. He will not recuse himself. He's on the ballot this year. We have got to get these people in the down ballots, and we have got to be consistent and make sure we get this message to our membership. If you get a full ballot, you vote the full ballot. And that's basically what I want to say, because it's really important. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. You're absolutely right. We have to get people to vote in the down ballot. It's very important. There's so many elections. I look forward to voting against Ron DeSantis in Florida and getting his crazy self out of there. Yeah, it's pretty terrible, but everybody has to vote. I know so many people are like, oh, voting. That's what people always say, but that's how the Republicans got into this position. Right. This is how we do it, how we get our people in to make change. So there's still a lot of primaries out there. Vote for the most progressive people you can. And if they don't win, vote for whoever's got a D on their name, because we cannot, if we don't maintain legislative control over our government, we'll all be literally handmaids. So
I so often have members say to me, but I don't know what judges to vote for. So I tell them, you just go into Google and say, who is the Democratic Party supporting? Take a look at that list. If you have to, take it with you into the ballot box and follow it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to have to close the queue at this time. Martha and Connie will come back to you. I'd like to bring to the screen Teresa Ritterhoff. She is our membership engagement coordinator. Welcome, Teresa. Good morning.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you so much. And thank you for putting this event together and for asking me to come today. I've been asked to say a few words about what has just occurred and how it can and should and must propel us to voting and helping others to vote in the midterm elections in November. For example, by phone banking, calling our members and reminding them to request their ballot. And this is both very easy and very difficult. The easy part is that we have no choice. We must elect Democrats up and down the ticket. There is simply no other option. The Republican Party has declared war on American women, on American queers, on trans America, on American children and American childhood, on American identity, history, humanity, on American motherhood and apple pie. There is no choice. Democrats stand for democracy and Republicans for autocracy, even fascism. We must vote all Republicans out and all Democrats in, easy. The difficult part is also that we have no choice. Our choice, our health, our sexuality, our bodies, our families, our marriages, our parenthood, our personhood, our autonomy, our full citizenship, our full humanity, all have been stripped from us in one fell swoop. The highest court in the land has declared us illegitimate second-class citizens, and in so doing has robbed itself of even the sheen of legitimacy. But the stench, as Elena Kagan called it, does not remain in the court. Their violent, aggressive act has demeaned us all of us who are American, all of us who have ever seen America as a beacon of democracy or a guiding light, and certainly those of us who serve, as a Senate candidate from Wisconsin recently put it, as unofficial American ambassadors overseas. As read yesterday on Twitter, it's hard to be patriotic about a country that hates you. There are even many, and they may or may not be in this Zoom room, but there are many who are angry at Democrats about this. And they are angry that they have no choice but to vote for Democrats. Some of them, of us, say that our leaders have not protected us. They point out that we have fought, gone out on the streets, marched the Women's March, organized and voted, only to be left abandoned with no rights and with no recourse, and no one to fight for them, for us. And let's be clear-eyed about this. They are not wrong. We are not wrong. So this is the hard part. How do we get from here, from our grief, from our sadness, our anger, our outrage, our sense of betrayal, to phone banking, to Call Hub? So maybe you think I'm making this too complicated. Calling our members is actually quite simple, and they want to hear from us, and they're ready to vote for Democrats. It's a win-win. But I think it's important that we not let Democrats or Americans or ourselves off the hook too easily. There has been a betrayal, a massive betrayal, an unprecedented betrayal, and it is not clear that it will be made right in our lifetime. Americans of childbearing age have been told by their own government that if their bodies betray them, as bodies are wont to do, or if, Athena forbid, a fellow human betrays them, as humans also sometimes do, they will have to bear the consequences, literally, bodily, betrayal upon betrayal, all the way down. I could tell you, and I will tell you, that there is a clear path to electoral and legislative victory. If there is a future in which abortion rights are codified into law, and there is, I hope, it will be realized in the Senate. If we defend our incumbents and pick up 2 more seats in November with a net gain, that is, of 2 seats, Senate Democrats can abolish the filibuster and right this wrong. We all know how important the overseas vote is to making this happen. And that in itself is a very, very good reason to make the calls and also to come here, Sherry Beasley, our Senate candidate from North Carolina, in just a few hours. But the other has to do with rearranging ourselves, our bodies, and our voices in this new landscape. And to this I say, they have taken our choice, but they have not taken our voice. They have tried, and they will keep trying. Can anything scream this more loudly than the silence of Amy Coney Barrett, the only woman on the court who assented to this monstrous ruling? She lets the male justices speak for her as she consents to the castration of her sex. She writes no opinion, and not speaking says it all. We will not commit this betrayal of our fellow Americans and our sister Americans. SCOTUS may have taken our choice, but they have not taken our voice. And at DA, we are accustomed to equating our voice with our vote, and frankly, we should. At the end of the day, only what can be counted really counts. But encouraging others to use that voice and thus amplifying it involves the creation of a network, or shall we say a hub, perhaps a call hub, of conversations and exchange. And that is what DA does. That it is what it is for. And to my mind, activating such a network is a very female mode of being in the world. I don't know if any of you have seen the film I Care a Lot on Netflix, perhaps not the best movie of all time, but in it, the female anti-hero triumphs by activating her network, by talking to people that her male rivals never saw coming, perhaps didn't even see as people: maids, nurses, teachers, taxi drivers, us. So I hope at this point, it does not sound too glib when I say, get on the horn, get in the hub, call your people, our people, raise your voice, and vote the bastards out, every last one. And now we're going to tell you how. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teresa. I know you're fired up. And so am I. And we are definitely going to move to our next portion because this is really important. We have to contact our almost 200,000 members. And as Teresa and others have said, only a small fraction of these people have requested an absentee ballot, which is really frightening that a lot of people are just like, nah, yeah, I see messages all day long and emails telling me to do this, but I don't really have an interest in it. But we've got to make people have an interest in it. So our next up, we have Katie Solon. And I think, Diego, you're also here. Katie is an expert on phone banking, and she's also our EMEA DNC rep. And Diego is our regional EMEA GOTV coordinator. So welcome, Diego and Katie.
Okay, Angela, thank you. Thank you, DA UK and DA France and the Global Women's Caucus for organizing this event, for inviting us, and for turning our anger into really concrete action. That's what we're going to talk about right now. Several speakers are the opening for our call-a-thon was featured Alex Barrios from Florida. When many other speakers today have talked about the long game, have talked about this coming not out of nowhere, but Republicans building stone by stone. We do need to do the same. We need to focus on the long game, but we also need to focus on the really short game of November 2022 and winning critical elections to keep Congress and to flip state legislatures that we can flip, like Arizona, where we need 1 seat in both houses. And the way to do that is to get people to the polls. And in Democrats Abroad with 200,000 members, the way to reach them, the most effective, most comprehensive to reach the greatest number, especially battleground voters, is to call them. We do so many other things. We reach people with email and social media. We reach a fraction of people with wonderful events like this. We can call people in the 90 minutes. In the time that's left to us, which is not 90 minutes, we can learn how to call And the rest of the day, you can join the call-a-thon and make as many calls as possible. And you can continue with us up until November 8th. But really, from now until Election Day 2020, we need to dedicate ourselves, we need to focus, we need to prioritize, and everything we do needs to have a GOTV component if we're going to make that difference, if we're going to keep Congress and win down ballot. So I want to briefly talk about the dialing for dollars. Oh, okay. I hope that I just got some message, something about the call-a-thon that's happening right now. It's 48 hours over this weekend. It started at 12:01 Saturday morning in DC and it will end at 11:59 tonight DC time. We're trying to finish up our battleground list. That means Florida and Wisconsin, especially, also New Hampshire and Vermont. DA members that vote in these states, please finish these states. We can do it by the middle of the day today, because once we finish them, we're going to call Arizona and Ohio and Michigan, people on this call, also Kansas and Missouri. Can't call them until we finish the list we're on. So I am going to click now and put a few links in the box. One, we're making these calls. We're also raising money to support calling and GOTV. We're not asking for money on the calls, but we are asking other people to donate to support this program. The Beasley event is at 2:45 our time today, North Carolina Senate candidate. At that point, we're going to have a midway checkup, and we'll know how many calls we've made up until that point, but the phones will still be open for another, what, do the math, somebody, 16 hours after that. And then the link at the bottom there is the closing event, which is for us at 9 p.m. Central European time. I know not everybody's on that time, so I'm switching back and forth a little, but we'll close. The phones will still be open for 6 more hours in the Americas. And quite, not coincidentally, quite intentionally, our guest speaker at the closing event will be Diane Post, an iconic feminist activist in Arizona, who will talk about some of the issues that we've been talking about today and will help to thank and motivate our callers. So with that, thanks, Diego, for also joining. Thanks, Andy Stites, one of the top callers in Democrats Abroad. We're going to quickly go into phone banking training. We're going to make it just as fast as we can. And then we're going to help people get signed up where they can start making calls for the rest of today. And also as we move, as I said, forward to November 8th. So Diego, anything to add before we get into the training?
I think we should just jump right into it. Thanks, Katie.
Okay, great. So then I hope that I'm going to be able to share my screen. I'm clicking on it. Woohoo, it looks like it worked. Good. I can't see the chat now. Maybe I can, but anyway.
I'll
Diego,
monitor the chat for
thanks,
you.
Angela. If there's any questions, please stop me. I am going to go kind of quickly, but these are the normal things that we would typically cover in a phone banking live training. What is our phone banking? Why do we do it? How to use the tool Call Hub, how to sign up, which you need to do at the Democrats Abroad website before you go into Call Hub, and then live calls. So what I propose we do is we go through number 1 pretty quickly. Then we jump over to Call Hub Live and look at the features there. I think it's easier to understand. Then we're going to ask Andy if he's willing to make a call. And then we're going to come back and show you this sign up process that everybody needs to do. And this can take 24 hours. However, today we've asked the Call Hub IT team to be on standby, and they are. And for anybody who wants to move through this process, it really only takes 5 or 10 minutes to sign up, but you need to receive 2 emails in order to get your credentials and to take a quiz. We're willing to take the quiz with you very quickly, and then for you to get your Call Hub license, because the IT team is waiting to receive your quiz and send back permission so you can start calling. So that's the plan. And yeah, let's get started. Any questions or comments? Before we get started, I would invite everyone who already knows how to use Call Hub to get off this call and start calling, because there are voters out there that need to hear from us. So some of you may not have called for a while. All you really need is your username and password. I have to move these photos of you lovely people out of my way so I can see. The format is the same for everybody. It's your country code. Michelle Obama, I don't know, she's spending time in Mexico now. So it's your country.
Katie, can you hold
Angela,
on one
go ahead.
second? We're not going to live stream the training because this is sensitive information. So I just want to let our Facebook audience know that we're ending the live portion, and you can go on our website and sign up for phone banking if you're a DA member. So thanks everyone who's watching live.
You can tell people to go to democratsabroad.org/phone banking. Phone banking _training.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Emily,
Angela.
go ahead and end the live stream, and Katie, please continue. Sorry.
Okay, thanks.
All right. With all that being said, thanks everybody for so much for being here, and thanks for being here. And we have to fight. We cannot, being passive is agreement. And so we don't agree with what's going on, and we will not be passive. So let's all go out there and make a difference in how many people are voting today. Thanks so much. Everybody take care and good luck with your call.